Hello and welcome in. I'm Adam Lamont here with Joe McDonald, and we are your co-editors and co-founders of Nothing But NESCAC. We're going to do something a little bit different for the introduction for basketball season. We're going to do a little video blog, basically. We'll have a lot of these videos coming out the next couple of days. I'm in Brunswick, Maine. Joe McDonald has the pleasure of being in Australia. Joe, a lot of off-season storylines. What stuck out to you? Let's get right into it.
Yeah, a lot of stuff happened this offseason, like you said, Adam. I'd like to start with Williams because I think that was the big story. Um, Losing their head coach, who'd been there for 6 seasons, had a great career, three Final Fours, an Elite Eight, and 147 and 32 record in his 6 seasons. Losing Duncan Robinson to Michigan, losing two guys who are in the top 10 in Williams college history in scoring, and the big question is who's going to replace all that production this year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you look at everything that they lost, it's sort of incredible. But still a good amount of guys coming back. Uh, the two starters who come back, Dan Wall and Hayden Brookley, both seniors. So you have some leadership there, and some other guys around them. But it's definitely a green team in Williams. But I think they've got a pretty nice sort of intriguing mix of talent looking at them.
Yeah, like you said, Adam, Dan Wall and Rook Lee are going to be the guys, I think, for the Eves. And Rook Lee, a guy with a lot of experience who came in with last year's senior class, ended up redshirting for a year because of injury, but definitely has been one of the best guards in the league when healthy. And I think Dan Wall is going to lead the team with the ball in his hands. The big question, though, is how's the offense going to play under new head coach Kevin App and without the presence of Mike Mayer in the middle. Last year, a lot of times employing a one in, four out type offense with Mayer in the center, and right now there's really no true center with experience on the roster to replace that kind of play.
Yeah, there is definitely center is a big question mark. They have Ryan Kilcullen, who's a transfer from Boston College. He was on the Williams team last year. Yeah, I mean he only averaged 4.9 points per game because he could only get on the floor 12.7 minutes behind Mayer. Then you got a big guy in Edward Flynn, who's 6'10". So that's a big body. Not sure where he's going to fit in because he didn't even play last year. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what this coaching squad is going to do because of all the unknowns around them, and what sort of strategy they're going to employ given the roster makeup.
Yeah, I know that you have a little more confidence in the East this year than I do, Adam. I think that it could be a transition year. I don't want to throw that around too loosely because it's still Williams and it's still an unbelievable program. I think Kevin App's going to come in and do pretty well. But I don't think another championship run is to be expected this year. They could be in the hunt for the NESCAC title, but I don't think they're going to make a deep run in the NCAAs like they did last year, Al.
Yeah, I mean, you can argue that. I think it was some preseason ranking had them number 5 in the country. I think it was the D3 basketball ones. D3 hoops one had them number 5 in the country. And yeah, you probably wouldn't even put them number 5 in NESCAC, would you?
Um, maybe yeah, probably top five, but it is close. I think Amherst has a strong squad. We're going to get to them in a little bit. I think Middlebury is going to have a strong squad. Granted, I'm a bit biased. A lot of people are hopping on the Tufts bandwagon this season. We're going to talk about them too. But yeah, I don't think Williams is top two where they've been for the last few years. So it'll be interesting to see. Um, but yeah, speaking of Amherst, let's move on to them. Um, Sort of the same position as Williams. It's been a kind of a dual-headed monster at the top of the league last few years. Amherst bringing in two transfers this year, Eric Conklin and Jay Dawson. You want to talk about them a little bit, Adam?
Yeah, so haven't see those guys in practice or anything like that at Amherst, but having seen some tape on them, the guard Dawson, he's sort of going to have to step in right away and probably play pretty major minutes. He's sort of a mixture between Toomey and Kalema. They're the two Amherst guards last year. He basically, played at D1, Farley Dickinson last year. Didn't shoot the ball too well, didn't get on the floor too much, but he was only a freshman at a D1 school, so I don't know how all that transfers. Then the other guy from Arizona, Ryan Conklin, not sure how he fits into the Amherst front court because they've got so many bodies, but he's from Arizona, D1 school, D1 powerhouse. So, those are two big question marks, and we don't know until we get on we play next Saturday what it's going to be like. But definitely a lot of talent now. All of a sudden, that just keeps coming back to Amherst.
Yeah, transfers are always an interesting case, especially in this situation they're usually coming down from the Division I level. And if you just take a look at this fall and what we saw on the football field, you had a guy in Austin Lohman who came in, had some success, had some struggles. He came from Boston College, and then you had a transfer at Colby and Michael Eck, who didn't even play, who came from UConn. But it'll be interesting to see how these guys pan out. It's there's Division I experience is no guarantee of success at this level. But I do think you're right that Dawson's going to have a lot on his plate right from the get-go, because Toomey is one of the most decorated guards in NESCAC history. So he'll have a big shoes to fill right from the start.
Yeah, and it's tough to say exactly how much Toomey and Kalema and also Tom Killian, for that matter, those three perimeter players, it's tough to say exactly how important they were for the Jets. They played so many minutes, but we sort of seen Amherst how Kalema and Killian really weren't impact players until their junior and senior years so much. So there's a lot of other players behind them who didn't have a lot of chances to play, and Amherst didn't have a deep rotation last year, but a case can be made that Amherst has just as much talent as anyone else in the NESCAC, but we just haven't seen it yet.
Mm-hmm. And I think Amherst is one of those programs where somebody graduates or moves on and somebody's ready to step right up. I think you hit the nail on the head with those guys starting to produce in their junior and senior seasons. David Hickson just runs a great program over there. I think he knows how to coach guys up from the start. He obviously gets a lot of talent, and I totally expect Amherst to be right at the top of the league again this season.
Yeah, the only thing that gives me pause, is that when you look at the Amherst roster from last year, there was not a single player who was a sophomore or junior listed at guard. Mm-hmm. Connor Green, he's a guard forward, he's sort of a swingman type, but he's not someone who has the ball in your hands. So if even besides Dawson, who else is going to help him out, even if he is a good player? We barely saw any of those guys get a lot of minutes last year. Right. So even if Dawson is a good player, there's still that two guard who Reed Berman was sort of the top backup last year, but only played 5.7 minutes a year. Besides, Diego Magana played 3.2 minutes a year. These guys just barely got any time behind those top guys.
Yeah, somebody from that class is definitely going to have to step up, because you can't expect one guy, especially a transfer who's new to the school and to the program, to take all of the pressure. So he's going to need somebody to help him out. There's no doubt about that. And, it's hard to tell who it's going to be until we get on the floor. We're not in there at practice. We don't know what David Hickson thinks of these guys. Their NESCAC coaches are always a little hesitant to let us in on too much. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of competition for time in the Amherst backcourt for sure.
Yeah, and their front court too. Ben Pollock is coming back from injury. We're not sure how he's going to be. David George really came on at the end of the year. Looks like a potential star. And then they just have so many big bodies. James Sanderson, 6'9", he's going to be a junior. Danny Curtis, 6'7", going to be a junior. Alex Levine, a senior, 6'8". Jacob Nabatoff, going to be a sophomore, 6'8". Just huge, but just big bodies at Amherst. Something that a lot of other teams, they can't match that depth up front.
Yeah, and I really think with Toomey and Keisel moving on, with Hart transferring, with Robinson transferring, I think having a strong front court is is probably more important than ever because I think that the league's actually maybe shifting a little bit that way just because of some of the players that are around the league. We talk about the Amherst guys, and then if you want to talk about Tufts with Hunter Sabetti and Tom Peleschi coming back this year, which we're gonna get to in a moment. Over at Middlebury, there's a lot of talent in their front court, but also some question marks. Um, Bates has a few big guys that were first years last year. Yeah, you just look around the league, and there's a lot of talented big men I think right now around the NESCAC.
Well, don't forget my guy up north, John Swords, the 7-footer.
Cool.
Obviously, he's a guy you can't forget, and it's hard to look over him when he's on the court. And then also Chris
Also
Hudnut.
got great hair.
What?
Got great hair too.
Yeah, that mustache is always on point for John Swords. And also Chris Hudnut for Colby is
Yep.
another guy who's really he's the cornerstone of their team. So yeah, I completely agree with you. From last year to this year, just a huge shift in where we're going to see scoring. I think a lot of and also how teams score,
Mhm.
and I think scoring will be down in large part because of that.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, I just think that Toomey and Kaizel were the stars of the NESCAC over the last couple of years, and some of the battles they had were great. And then Robinson stepping in last year and becoming a star. Um, yeah, I think we're going to see some big guys turn into big names around the league. But the guy we just mentioned, Matt Hart, leaving Hamilton, that's going to be a huge blow to them. And you think that that could be the biggest loss of any team in the NESCAC?
Yeah, well, looking at all these things, I think a lot of people would peg the Robinson loss as maybe the biggest one because I mean I think a lot of it is that we get caught up in that he went to Michigan. Like that's incredible. He went to Michigan from the NESCAC, and Hart went from Hamilton to George Washington, and we sort of overlooked that this summer because we were busy doing other things. But when you just look at Hart's statistics compared to everybody else on that team, he really put Hamilton on his back. And Hamilton was a pretty good team last year as well. I mean, from playing against Middlebury that they gave you two really good games both
Yeah,
times.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Uh,
and and yeah, Hart was the majority of the scoring for Hamilton. They're not bringing anybody back that scored in double figures last year. So the question is who's going to be the guy for them. And we're talking about big guys. I think it could be a Johnny Santos. He's going to be a junior. He's 6'7", one of the biggest guys in their roster. Played really tough up at Middlebury last year. He was a 7-4 guy, not incredible numbers, but I think he's got the talent to put up some bigger numbers this year. Got a lot of time. So I'm looking for him to really make an impact. What do you think?
yeah, I think that's a good pick. Another guy, Jack Donnelly, is someone who I look at. The only guy besides Hart last year who made more than one three-pointer on the Hamilton roster. So they're going to need his shooting. He was not really a big player, in terms of ball handling. He
Mhm.
he only averaged 1.4 assists per game, so that wasn't really that much. And then of course you've got Jeremy Lin's younger brother, Joseph Lin, who now is probably going to see a lot of more time because you lose Hart and you also lost Greg Newton who graduated.
Yeah. And Lynn saw a lot of minutes last year too, and he had the ball in his hands quite a bit. I think he's going to be the primary ball handler this season. Um, he was a little bit up and down. He gets a lot of attention because of the name, but he's not a bad player. He's a little bit small, but he can definitely handle the ball. Gonna have a lot of pressure on him this year, though, for sure. I think overall the Hamilton roster is going to have to take a big leap forward, though, if they want to be at the same place they were last year.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be. I think the Hart loss sets them back big time, and given just where other teams are, I think they're going to really have a really tough time of it, given
Mm.
their roster makeup and everything else. And unfortunately, if everything sort of keyed off of Matt Hart, and without that, you have third options trying to be one options, and like you see with the Celtics, in the NBA, that just it's hard to make that work.
Yeah, I mean, at times Matt Hart could just shoot them out of games, shoot them out of slumps. So I don't think they have that this year. But another story we want to talk about, Adam, is the return of Tom Peleschi, former NESCAC Rookie of the Year 2 seasons ago. Had a heart condition that kept him out last season, unfortunately. But he's healthy enough to come back. We don't know if he's 100%, if he's 80%, where he's at. But he should be able to play next weekend, and that's going to be, we think, a big boon to the Jumbos.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's pretty incredible that he's been able to get cleared, and that I wish him all the luck because I think it's so great that he's able to come back and play. And Tufts will definitely be the better for it, but the question is just how much better are they going to be?
Yeah. No, it's an unbelievable story, and yeah, we're all so happy to see him back on the court. If he can produce like he did his freshman year, they're going to have a really strong front court with Hunter Sabetti, who in most years might have been a Rookie of the Year last year, but Duncan Robinson stole that honor away. But Sabetti was so good at times. I mean, again, I keep talking about when guys came to play at Middlebury because I got to see him firsthand from down at floor level. And Sabetti in the first half, I think he went 8 for 8 against Middlebury, just dominated. Matt Daly was able to frustrate him in the second half, but you could and got in his head a little bit too. He's had a little bit of a temper. I'd like to see him work on that, but at times Sabetti can just be dominant.
Yeah, he is a great player, but it's interesting to see how Peleschi and Sabetti will work together. How much are they able to be on the court at the same time? Does Tufts down the stretch have those two playing at the same time, or does that mess with their spacing? Because if neither of them can shoot from 18 feet out, then then teams can just clog up the middle. Especially given how Tufts is really lacking in a lot of outside shooting this year.
Yeah, Sabetti likes to bang down low. He's a big body, weighs in at about 240 pounds. Like you said, spacing is going to be an issue, I think, if both of them are on the court. But they're both such talents. Again, this is all dependent on Peleschi's conditioning, which we hope is okay. But they're both such good talents. They have to be on the court at the same time a lot of the time. So they're going to need to find a way to make that work. The Jumbos don't lose too much from last year. They lose a couple of guards. They lose their point guard, Oliver Cohen. Someone else is going to have to handle the ball. But still a lot of talent coming back, and that's why so many people are high on Tufts this year. We talk about the big guys, but we also got to talk about Ben Ferris, who's been a leader for this team for the last 2 years. He was a little bit hurt at the beginning of last year. He was kind of slow to get it going, didn't put up numbers quite as good as he did the year before, but definitely still a good player.
Yeah, Ben Ferris and also Stephen Halatna, those are the two guys coming back who have the most experience at guard. But they also lost Kwame Firempong and also Oliver Cohen, who's a guy who didn't score a lot, but was their best assists guy, averaged 4.9 assists. And so that's sort of why I have a lot of questions about Tufts. Other people, like you said, are really high on them. I'm a little bit more hesitant. In preseason right now, I can't put them any higher than 4th or 5th in the NESCAC because of what other teams are bringing back. But they're an intriguing team.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Adam. I think they have the potential, if everyone's healthy and plays to the best of their abilities, they have potential to win this league. I wouldn't pick them to win this league, but they definitely could. Realistically, I think they're going to be somewhere around that 4, 5, 6 range, like you said. It's tough when we haven't seen the consistency from them the last few years. Health has been such a big issue, like I said, with Ferris and Peleschi. Obviously, that's just a stroke of bad luck. But yeah, if they can all put it together and all be on the court at the same time, they got a lot of potential. Another guy we didn't talk about, but another big body that was battling with Sabetti last year for playing time at the beginning of the year was Drew Madsen, and he didn't get nearly as many minutes. But he's another guy that could take a step forward and just add to the dominance of the Tufts front court this season, which I think is going to be their biggest strength.
Yeah. I mean, they are definitely a good team with a lot of interesting pieces. So, a lot of talent, but they've always had a lot of talent there. So now they have to deliver.
Yeah, exactly. Time to put it together for the Jumbos.
And yeah, so that's pretty much all we want to get to on this post, right? Before I cut us off, right, Joe?
Mm-hmm. That's it. Thank you for joining us. We'll have more videos coming your way.
Yeah, we'll be getting some players who are X factors for teams. We'll have our NESCAC all conference predictions, a couple of other things as well, and then we'll have our standings. So and also look at all of our specific team updates. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think of the idea, and leave comments below.
Yep. Thank you.